Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Three Amigos podcast. It's more than just me this time. It's more than just Chris. I got my guy Frankie with me. Frankie, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, man? Good to be back, and we're talking wrestling again.
Wrestling. Welcome back, man. So we were going to do this episode about the breaking news that just came out today that Triple H is now head of creative, which is a day we never thought would actually come while we were alive. But before we dove into that, since I did the Vince McMahon's retirement episode by myself, did you have any thoughts on the Vince McMahon stuff? Just anything you wanted to get out
Oh,
about the greatest day of our lives?
man, dude, it's still surreal. Like I feel like I'm being punked. I'm like Ashton Kutcher's gonna come out and just punk us, or if we're being worked or something. It's kind of exciting. I know people want to you know, say thank you, Vince, and start a chant with that, but no, that's not gonna
Ah,
be me.
fuck
I'm not.
that shit. Fuck Vince
Fuck
McMahon.
that shit. He's degrading towards women. He's changed what professional wrestling is and call it sports entertainment, which sure you can argue, pick your poison, pick your choice, whatever. I get it, they're one and the same in a way, but like the strict and the audacity that the rules behind WWE are just eye roll worthy, and just it's nonsense. And I hope Trips does what he needs to do or can do or is allowed to do. I don't know, like how far they can, revert revert some of these old ways, is classical thinking. I don't know, but
Yeah. Do you remember like what your immediate reaction was when you heard? Because I think you told
yeah, it
me,
was me.
right? I think you
Yeah,
told
I
me.
think I've
Yeah,
sent you
or
all the breaking news shit, including
yeah, and
today.
then or it's like you told me and then I was like immediately about to send you a link, but yeah. So what was the first thought? Because this is like groundbreaking. This was like
Yeah,
what is happening? Like what was your first reaction?
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? No fucking way. Is what's the catch?
Yeah.
What's the catch? Like, I don't, this isn't a full retirement, is it? Like, it's like he's working from home or something. No, it's still, I'm still in awe, and I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I'm more happy, and and it just keeps getting better. He's gone, and Trips is in
Yeah.
charge. So it's just like, it's endless. There's endless possibility, and we should jump right into it now because fuck Vince McMahon.
Yeah. So on a happier note, Triple H, Paul Levesque has been named, in addition to head of talent relations, he has been named head of creative.
Let's
All of it.
fucking
NXT, Raw, SmackDown, main event, 205 Live, if that still exists.
I don't even
He's
know.
in charge of all of it. This is something that Frankie and I, who like we got more into WWE a few years ago and we started going to NXT shows,
Mhm.
but this was something that we would pray for,
Yeah.
like hands and knees before bed to the heavens that Triple H would get a chance to run WWE on a grander scale because the NXT shows, like he turned NXT into I heard someone mention this earlier, but like you could argue that the like peak NXT, like
Hmm.
2015 to 2019,
Hmm.
was the greatest wrestling promotion in the world.
Yep.
Like the only competition is New Japan, and I don't even know if that's fair because they had been at it way longer. Like
Yeah.
Triple
Yeah.
H had not been in charge for like literally just a few years.
Still impressive though.
Yeah. So what he was able to take not only NXT, the just like weekly TV show, which he turned into borderline must watch TV. Like I used to literally come home from work in the afternoons the following day, like Thursday morning, and watch on Hulu because I wanted to make sure I like was up to date on what was
Yeah, that
happening.
was you. You were watching those pre-tape stuff,
I
man.
loved NXT. But more importantly, he made NXT takeovers literally can't miss. Like there were only 4 or 5 of them a year, I think. And I mean, me and Frankie, like we tried to watch all of them together. At the very least, we tried to watch them
Mhm.
because they were always amazing. And after they were over, people were always like, that was the best show of the year. Like it was just so, so good. So yeah, man, how are you feeling about Triple H being in charge of create. This is the most important thing I would think he could be in charge of, and he's finally gotten there.
I don't know, man. I like we said a lot and we shouldn't have, but I mean, there's still a lot that we still haven't touched. I figure, but like it's incredible to think and just mouth-watering to think that of the potential and the ramifications in a way. Because if I'm AEW, I'm sweating. Like you
Getting a
said,
little
I'm sweating.
nervous.
I'll be
Getting
a
a
little
little
nervous.
nervous. Not
And
gonna
like,
lie.
and if anybody stumbles upon this, and anyone wants to call us marks and whatever and whatnot, and say like, oh, a bunch of casuals, which sometimes we were, we kind of reverted back to casual, but not really, because like
That's Vince's fault that we reverted
yeah,
back to
exactly.
casual.
Nah, and even then, like we follow. I go to indie shows religiously, pretty
Yeah,
much.
we
I've gone,
follow AEW more
yeah,
than like I don't know if I could name for you the champions for the mid card champs for WWE.
yeah. I'm
I,
sure you could take a good guess, and I'm
Matt
sure you'll
Riddle,
be
the
somewhat right.
U.S. champion. I
Nope.
honestly have no idea.
No. But it's still it's crazy to think because this changes everything. The people that have left and since left because of Nick Khan, Vince McMahon combination, 1-2 hit quitter of saying, all right, future endeavors.
Yeah.
Like now they may have to rethink saying, hey, maybe I don't have to stay loyal to one company again after all. I mean, you should never be loyal to one company at all, but like definitely the people who were pretty much indeed pretty much handpicked by Triple H were once they were out of his reach or out of his control, realized, yeah, this isn't that much fun anymore. And
Yeah. Dude, Ciampa,
yeah,
remember when he threatened to retire?
yeah, if he
Like
got called up,
he loved NXT and like working under Triple H so much that he just threatened to retire. And I texted you this right before we hopped on, but like Ciampa got quote unquote called up, even though it honestly feels like a demotion 90% of
yeah,
the time.
yeah,
But they ruined him immediately. Like
yeah,
obviously,
changed his
I don't
music,
want to
yeah,
say they ruined him. Vince ruined him because he's not 8 feet tall.
yeah,
And like right away he was like the Mrs. Lackey or something. I don't even know what the fuck they were doing with Ciampa.
yeah,
And they were just like jobbing him out, and it was so painful to watch, especially like I imagine the pain Triple H went through watching the guys that he built basically from the ground up, like Gargano and Ciampa, and just watching them either never get a shot on the main roster or get a shot and then just be completely buried immediately.
yeah.
And Ciampa is safe. If anything, there's like so much potential now because that's like Triple H's boy. Like aside from Samoa Joe and Finn Balor, like and Adam Cole, who's a lot of those guys are not in WWE anymore, but like
Yeah.
a lot of those OG NXT guys are like you mentioned Ricochet. We were talking earlier, like there's a lot of guys that might get a shot to do more than just be like jobbed out or stuck in the mid card or like tag teaming with Baron Corbin or whatever. Like Pete Dunne, who's lost his name and is called Butch.
Yeah.
There's hope. There's hope for these
There's
guys.
absolute hope. But there's also the idea, like, and like I want to say before I forget, is like Johnny Gargano could come back.
Dude,
as far as I know, he hasn't signed.
No.
So he could go back. He's like, oh, Hunter's in charge now.
I mean, I'm not friends with Johnny Gargano as despite how badly I wish I was. But if I had to guess, I would imagine he'd come back in a heartbeat. Like, if I had to guess, I would imagine some of the some very specific guys in AEW, like Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, maybe the Revival, although they seem pretty happy with like where they're at, even though if it was up to Triple H, they would be at that same height only in WWE. Yeah. Guys like that, I do wonder, like, because like one of the things I talked about on the solo episode, I think I mentioned this briefly, was just like the reason Sasha Banks and Naomi left was because Vince is an idiot. And like those are arguably two of the most talented women on the roster, and they left because Vince is dumb. And like Ember Moon like left because Vince is an idiot.
Yeah.
Like they lost so much talent because of him that part of me is like excited. The other part of me is like kind of bummed that Triple H doesn't have his full arsenal.
Yeah,
Like he doesn't like. But one thing I did want to touch on is that, um, for better or for worse, I think one of the big problems with WWE for a long time has been that they had dueling creative departments. So like NXT, like Black and Gold NXT, had Triple H, and he was amazing, and like
yeah,
building all of these, you know, depending on how much you follow wrestling, a lot of these guys were pretty unknown to a large majority of people.
for sure, for sure.
And then he gave them an opportunity and like really built them up. But it wasn't Vince's creative. So then they would get to the main roster and Vince would just be like, I don't care. Like, get rid of this guy's first name, get rid of his last
Hmm.
name, like dress him up in a weird thing. He's going to win the 24/7 title. So now I think there's a lot of value in Triple H being head of creative.
Yeah,
Like, there's going to be more synergy between someone from NXT likely being the same version that they were when they come to the main roster, if they still treat it in like a
yeah.
call-up situation.
Damn.
Because previously it was like guys would get called up and they would immediately be completely different and like not taken seriously. And just when you have a unified creative, like hopefully we don't, because we started to feel like we were wasting our time.
Hmm.
Like we'd get invested in guys like Walter or Ricochet or Adam Cole or whatever, and then they'd get called up and they would do nothing, like Keith Lee, and we'd just be like, why did we bother?
Yeah,
Like it sucked to watch the like Keith Lee and Dijak have 5-star takeover matches and then get called up to the main roster and do nothing.
nothing.
So hopefully that is now not going to happen, or at least not going to happen as much.
Yeah, the other potential, or not potential, or there's hope now, I guess, too, for something. But Triple H has an eye for talent. Let's face it, he's
Oh
got it
yeah.
for sure. We've always known that. I know there's that old breed, and I hope it's a dying breed. But let's face it, they're not, because they're probably still pretty healthy, or unless they're like drinking beer and eating hot dogs every day, then they might not last. But there is a breed of people who, and Wrestle Talk has talked about it, where like they think the Attitude Era is the end all be all perfection of wrestling. And
Mm-hmm.
sure, I get it. There's a lot of nostalgia for me. Obviously, mine was the Ruthless Aggression. Us, we
Yeah.
love the Ruthless Aggression era, and even then, like it has its huge flaws, obviously. But there was always the pops. Everybody fans were always up, and that's something that's been missing in this day and age of product of WWE. There's not that many pops. However, Trips brought that, and like for some reason, these diehards, and I always remember this one guy commenting like Triple H like didn't create any new stars. I'm like, what do you mean? He
What?
created all these new stars in the comments. Like, yeah, it's like
What?
he lost like the war to WWE to AEW. It's like he didn't lose anything. In fact, he was given a
What?
bad hand, and anything he kept getting gutted from all his superstars. And
Yeah.
like, and then he was like, yeah, and like what? How many new stars did he create? I'm like, he created a bunch of new stars. It's Vince that wanted to feeding them and destroying, dismantling everything that he helped create.
Because he
And like
hated it. He hated that Triple H, that these guys weren't his. He hated
exactly.
that he didn't come up with what, like, oh man, I don't want to go on
Yeah,
like
I know. So my point is like this dude
yeah.
was really trying to say like Triple H did a lot wrong and NXT should go back to being a reality show. I was like dumbfounded. This
Holy
is this
shit.
this is a true
Strap
WWE
that
mark,
man to the next fucking Tesla rocket and shoot him onto Mars. Oh my
dude.
god, are you kidding
Dude, it
me?
was crazy. I'm gonna see if I can find that conversation. It was crazy. Anyways, but like I like what's sad about this too is like he doesn't have William Regal. He doesn't have his team anymore.
I
He had
know.
NXT. If he had that team in NXT, which is let's face it, he was creating his own teams for the future takeover,
Yeah.
and it was dismantled. But
It was just a little, he was just a little ahead of his time. Just a little
no,
like,
I just hate that
yeah.
they did Regal dirty like that. Now dirty, like it's still kind of dirty. I don't know. I feel like
No, for sure, dude. Like, I forget who mentioned it, but like someone referenced the Samoa Joe release from like last year, where as soon as Triple H found out, he re-signed him.
Mhm.
Like, you don't hear stories like that. When someone
No.
gets released from a company, it is very strange for a higher up at the company to, one, not know about it,
Mhm.
and two, go out of their way to bring the person back immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I have no doubts that if Triple H was still there in some capacity over the last couple of years, like he would not have, like the mass exodus we saw would not have. He would have been able to try to keep some of these guys.
Yeah. So I'm just like I'm hoping, and I know knowing his eye for talent, he's gonna bring in the good talent. Like I think I'm pretty sure he's like he kept bringing in the new talent. Like he signed a Valerie, the
Yeah,
MMA fighter. I'm sure that was all him. He has his eye for talent. He knows what people would want to see on their television screen. Granted, I don't know how much hand he had in the recent batch, but obviously, if he did, it's the writing, it's the presentation that's
yeah.
not hitting with everybody. So I hopefully he can fix that, but I'm not gonna like hope for it to be changed overnight, which I
Gotta
had to
give
tell
him time.
myself. Got to
Yeah,
give him time.
gotta give
Like
him time.
I hope like the way like this starts getting fixed is when they announce a takeover. If they just revert to saying NXT takeover
Oh,
comes
I didn't
back,
even think of that.
if he can
Oh
do
my
that, if he
God,
does
please
that,
bring back
you
takeover.
best believe everyone's gonna that I'm willing to bet, and I hope I'm right, and because people who did watch NXT and bled black and gold will make
Yeah.
the first takeover sell out, and they'll those will go like crazy,
Yeah.
and I just feel like again it sucks because if now that he's in charge, he doesn't have that amazing NXT team he had. But
Man.
now, he is back in charge in a higher position. He can, maybe like pull some strings and maybe bring in some good producers, some good people who have that eye for talent. Like William Regal just had that eye. You know,
Yeah.
he fought for some of these guys or not fought, but like he recommended people, or he was literally a scout. Like he would be at indie shows, and they would do like
Yeah.
he would come out and say welcome to NXT and shit, and so would Trips. But you know like
Also,
that's what I'm excited for.
worth mentioning too that Road Dogg, who is no longer part of NXT, was
Hmm.
pretty high up when Triple H was running things.
Yeah,
And like, I don't know too much about Road Dogg's role, but I know he was pretty important, like him, Shawn Michaels, Triple H.
yeah, for sure.
And NXT was pretty fucking awesome when those three were like running the show. So I mean, I would love to see Trips bring back as many of his like managing guys as
Yeah.
possible. But like what you said, it is a bummer that a lot of his guys are gone in
Hmm.
terms of like I here's an interesting question. Would a lot of these recent AEW signings and debuts have been as interesting if Triple H had not built those guys up first? Like
Hmm.
when Adam Cole, Andrade, Aleister Black, those guys going to AEW, would that have been as big of a deal if Triple H had not made all of them main eventers?
That's a great question. I think with Adam Cole, no,
Yeah,
definitely not Adam Cole. He was already a name before that. He was pretty over. He was pretty popular. He got himself over with the Young Bucks, or you could argue the Young Bucks got him over, whatever. But like him and New Japan, like they clicked, they meshed well. So no, I would say with Adam Cole, like Kyle O'Reilly, like it's crazy because like in my sense, like we've had this kind of conversation and like debate. It's like you would always say like they should stop signing like these WWE guys or pushing these WWE guys. Where I was like, I don't know them as WWE guys. I knew them first as the indie guys. You know, like at some point, someone's gonna say, "Oh, why they keep signing these WWE guys?" And I mean, well, that is what's happening. People are saying, "Oh, they're signing these WWE guys." No, Keith Lee was not a WWE guy. He was an indie guy. I saw him wrestle in the Indies. I've seen him personally wrestle in the Indies.
oh yeah,
Dijak. I've seen a lot of these people I've seen wrestle in the Indies. And if people are like just a pure fan of wrestling, then no, I would just say no, I don't think so. But there's the casual and say who maybe just indulges in mainstream wrestling, and
yeah,
that primarily means U.S. wrestling too, because it's a big deal here. It's just WWE and AEW, and so yeah, I would say like maybe if it wasn't for Trips, they wouldn't have gotten that big of a reaction or big of a hype if it wasn't for them touching and the waters and doing what they did in NXT, because Andrade became a superstar because he had that fucking incredible match with Drew and Gargano a few times over.
yeah. and Andrade was really one of those, like, he was really a Triple H project.
Yes, he was.
Like,
Absolutely.
because I remember when he beat Drew McIntyre, and like some of that may or may not have been altered because Drew got hurt during that
Yes.
match. But I remember thinking like, and you and I, whenever we watched Takeover, like we trusted Triple H's booking so hard that even when we didn't understand why he made decisions, we were like, but he's got a plan. Like
Yeah.
whatever he's doing, even if we don't get it, he's got a plan, which is literally the opposite of what we say about main roster shit, which is like,
Mhm.
this is leading towards nothing.
Yeah.
Like this is, it doesn't matter if we like it or not, because it's in 3 weeks, it's going to be gone anyway, and they'll just be doing something else. But I remember not trusting the Andrade stuff because I'm just like, first of all, nobody really knows what this guy is.
Mhm.
And putting the NXT title on him over Drew McIntyre, who was like, when Drew came back to NXT, that was a huge story. It's like
Yeah.
this guy who
We
rebuilt
watched
his
him win the
whole
title.
fucking career. Yeah. Um, and then but Triple H like believed in Andrade and put him on a bigger stage and gave him more exposure. And then him and Johnny Gargano had one of the greatest wrestling matches of the last like 10
That was
years.
a great takeover.
And like all of a sudden, Andrade was like a legit main eventer. He felt like a champion. Like Triple H was so good at making these guys feel legit.
Mhm.
Like he took a guy named Velveteen Dream and turned him into a must-see main eventer.
Yeah.
Like, not to give a platform to someone who ended up being kind of a horrible person, but
Yeah.
like it's just an example of like Triple H picking these guys. And like there's plenty of stuff he didn't do correctly. Like Keith Lee didn't do shit in NXT for like 3 years. And Dijak just wasting away before Triple H finally gave them a shot.
Mhm.
But that's also because he had a crazy talent pool at the time,
Yeah.
like insane. Because then it was at NXT was just like signing literally everybody
Yeah.
before AEW could get started. So, like you said, I'm not expecting, like we didn't watch Raw tonight, so who knows? Maybe they fucking crowned new Universal Champions. I have no idea.
I just saw
Maybe
the ending,
Austin
so no.
Theory like cashed in his briefcase. I'm not expecting overnight for WWE
Yeah.
to become good,
It's gonna
but
take some time.
yeah, and I think like to that point, NXT didn't become amazing overnight. Like if you look at the timeline of like 2015 to 2019,
Mhm.
like I remember the first takeover we went to was probably one of the weaker shows, and that was in 2016, 2015.
Mhm.
And then you look at like the last takeover we went to, which is arguably one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time. Like it took time to get there. Like, it took him helping Matt Riddle become more of a refined main eventer, and Ricochet and Aleister Black having that crazy tag team match. Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, two guys who would never under the Vince McMahon era ever be allowed to compete in a world championship match against each other. Triple H campaigned for what was it, Adam Cole and Pete Dunne to have an incredible match on like Survivor Series or something.
Mhm.
He had, what was it, Adam Cole and Daniel Bryan. Like he made Shayna Baszler one of the most dominant NXT women champions ever, and then she got to the main roster and Vince was just like, I don't care, I don't even know who this is.
Yeah.
This is the same guy who pushes the Brock Lesnar button all the time. um so it's going to take time. It's going to take time. I hope that people give Triple H time, because I think one of the things I worry about is like, I mentioned this briefly when we were just chatting, is
Mhm.
like revisionist history of like people acting now like Vince McMahon was actually great. And then if Triple H doesn't like, I don't know, fucking like bring back NXT Takeover this weekend, people are gonna be like, "See, I knew he couldn't handle like having more responsibility." And like,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
were all these people who like stabbed him in the back a couple years ago to like get all of his like get Regal out of there, get all his boys out of there. Then they filled it in with Bruce Pritchard and all those other idiots who don't know what they're doing. Like, I just hope people remember that Triple H helped create like 4 years of maybe the greatest roster and like pay-per-views and matches ever,
Mhm.
ever in the world. Like it's gonna be a challenge for sure. And I'm sure there's still some people in that company who don't want to see him succeed. But I am really hoping that he did it once. He can do it again.
Yeah, I think he
That's the
can.
hope.
I think he can, and that's something I really really hope people will just like you said. Like I really hope people just don't like say, "Oh, look, 1 month and we still have this garbage." You got to be patient. You got to be patient. The
Yeah.
rebuilding is happening, and we're seeing it. I also like this is gonna take a lot, especially the wave and handle this whole thing. There's a lot of stuff he set up
Mhm.
for this entire summer, and like we got to see what they'll do. Granted, and card subject to change, but also you got to make it work, make it make sense too. And that's something that's been sorely lacking for the last who knows how long. So honestly, I mean, they could just pull the plug on a lot of these stories and just say, "Fuck it, do this, and that." But I think they want to see how it plays out, and then reevaluate where to take some certain storylines and go and take it from there. Because I think maybe by Survivor Series we'll have a clear picture what's going to happen for the foreseeable future. Maybe, but
Yeah.
that's still even that's a stretch.
It's interesting because since you mentioned that, I guess we should end up by landing on the fact that SummerSlam is this weekend.
Yeah.
So all of the crazy news and positions being given to different people, and Triple H and Stephanie and Nick Khan, all that, Vince McMahon leaving, all of that has happened, and now we are a week before supposedly the biggest pay-per-view of the summer, even though they
Supposedly.
don't really ever treat it that way.
Yeah.
But one of the things that SummerSlam in the past has sometimes been used for is a reset button.
True.
So post SummerSlam is sometimes treated the way that the Raw after Mania used to be treated,
Mm.
which was like scrap what like how whatever the booking decisions are, those are all over. All those storylines are over. We're starting fresh. We're going into the Survivor Series build, and then that leads into the Royal Rumble. So then they start planning for Mania. So there's a chance now. I don't really think Triple H has been watching WWE. If he's anything like us, who he actually cares about a good product, he probably hasn't been paying attention.
Right.
But come this Sunday or Monday, whenever, I forget, the pay-per-view's on Saturday now.
I never know.
Come after this weekend, we might see the first like stamp that he puts on, whoever opens the show on Monday, whoever opens the show on Friday. I also wanted to mention, because I did bring this up in the episode we did where Vince retired slash was wished best of luck in his future endeavors. I am excited to see the sort of relationship between Paul Heyman and Triple H.
Yeah.
I think are like two of the smartest bookers in wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
maybe ever. Specifically Paul Heyman,
Yeah.
who's always got a lot of really good ideas, and I am really excited to see now that their voices are louder,
Yeah.
like what they can actually do. Because there were so many instances in the past where Paul Heyman, it would come out that he had like these great ideas, and then he mentioned the Vince, and Vince was just like, no, like not even a negotiation. Vince was just like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, so if you bring those same ideas up to Triple H, who's like way more receptive and probably could use a little help booking 3 shows, this like pretty exciting. Like it was Paul Heyman's idea to do the tribal chief stuff,
Yeah.
which up until they kind of just lost wherever that story was supposed to be going, that was one of the most compelling storylines in wrestling. So there's a lot of potential with somebody in charge now who's way more, I guess, invested in good storylines and just
Hmm.
more open to ideas. Like, okay, we could spend a whole episode on like
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
dumb Vince McMahon stuff, but do you remember Shorty G?
Of course. Of course.
Like that one just crossed my mind. I'm like, This guy, I think it was a combination of that and fucking Jason Jordan being Kurt Angle's son. Like the dumb fucking ideas that Vince McMahon came up with and put on television.
Cuck holding.
Oh, God, I'm so glad that
Cuck
guy's
holding.
oh,
Poor Rusev.
oh my God. You remember he was mad about not inventing Rusev Day? Like he hated the fans, all the fans that fucking cheer Vince McMahon. He hates you. He hates you. He
Yeah.
shits on you. He probably has your
Yeah.
fucking faces on his toilet paper so he can wipe his ass with your faces. He hates the fans so much. He hates anything that's not his idea.
Yeah.
Him
He's
getting kicked
narcissistic.
out. Him getting kicked out is the greatest thing that ever happened in wrestling. I felt that way before Triple H was in charge. Now I'm even happier because this is like this. It feels like the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
It feels like the sky's the limit.
I agree, man. I love your enthusiasm. I'm still in awe. I'm surprised I'm not jumping for joy. I guess because I'm jumping for joy for other things, but
Yeah, but I think also like you represent. There's like a contingent of fans that are like not nervous, but just like, well, let's not pop the champagne just yet. Like, let's see
yeah,
if
I'm
this
more
is
cautious.
actually
Yeah,
different.
I guess I'm more on the cautious side, but like don't get
Yeah,
me wrong, I'm very excited. I'm happy he's gone too. Fuck that guy.
I think the direction I'm coming at all of this news from is, I mean, I'm allowing myself to be excited because I do think this is exciting as a wrestling
Mhm.
fan who's felt oppressed by how
Yeah,
bad WWE is. And like
yo.
when we talk about it being unwatchable, we don't want it to be unwatchable. We don't
Mhm.
want to hate WWE. We don't want to shit on
Yeah, we
WWE.
don't, but
Like
they do it to themselves.
we love so many of the wrestlers who were unfortunately felt for years are stuck in that company. Like we love so many of those
We
wrestlers.
cheered when they got released because that means they
For
were free
real.
and able to be their true self somewhere else.
And it shouldn't be that way. It
Exactly.
shouldn't, like when guys were in NXT and they get called up, we would be sad. We would be like, well, that's it. Like
You
that
know what
guy's
this is
gonna
the
be
equivalent when
24/7
the
champ.
Orioles are so bad, and then like someone made a joke article as like a AAA player gets demotion to MLB MLB roster to main roster Orioles. I'm like, that's so true. That's how I looked at it.
Oh,
Fucking NXT
yeah,
roster superstars get demotion to main roster.
dude, that's literally how it felt. Like, so I'm looking at this from the perspective of like, this is exciting, and also it can't be worse.
Yeah, for sure. It can't be
Like,
worse.
for anyone who is nervous about, like, I'm not necessarily looking for this to live up to prime NXT because I think that's going to be tough if you're spreading it across three brands.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably better if three brands don't all feel the same because one of the things that made NXT special is that it felt so different. I think what I'm looking for ideally, maybe I'm going to regret this, but
Oh
because I
boy.
do think Vince did some things correctly,
Sure.
is in a perfect world, I'm looking for some middle ground between what Vince McMahon had created and what his ideas were for how to build a roster and what
Mm-hmm.
Triple H created. Because I think it's going to be hard for Triple H to replicate that across three brands.
Mm.
And I think he's going to need some sort of like, some guys are better at entertaining than they are at wrestling, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
Like there's still value in people like that. Not everyone needs to be. You don't need 50 Johnny Garganos on the roster.
for sure.
Like Elias was super entertaining until they started doing whatever the fuck it is they're doing with him. But yeah, so I'm hoping that it can't get worse. We already know that,
Yeah.
and Triple H will find a happy medium that works with the way he viewed NXT and the way maybe someone like Paul Heyman is like, hey, here's what works, or here's what would work on a main roster, large scale type of operation. So yeah, I guess this is where the fun begins.
This is where the fun begins, man. So we'll be watching this closely, and we'll be bringing you the best of both worlds of AEW and WWE, and
Hell
maybe
yeah,
one
man.
day we'll see MJF again. Who knows?
Ooh, maybe now that Vince is gone, we might see these two companies team up. Who knows? Just
Yeah,
throwing it
who
out there.
knows?
All right, buddy. Well, it's great having you back on the podcast.
Thank you, sir.
This was nice. And thanks everybody for tuning in again. We like talking about wrestling. Maybe we'll do it again if there's more crazy news, but hopefully this is the first day of the rest of our wrestling lives.
Hell yeah.
This has been the Three Big O's podcast. Talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.